Welcome back to Jackie's Movies, where we're talking about the 95th Academy Award nominations for Best Picture. Elvis. Here we go. First, just round of applause for Austin Butler. I mean, you're playing the most impersonated man on planet Earth, Elvis Presley. Everyone has done an Elvis impersonation. Everyone. And that would be such a heavy feat to be responsible for playing him accurately. And he does such a wonderful job not impersonating him, but doing an interpretation of him and really embodying who Elvis is. So props to Austin Butler. I loved him in this movie. I hope he wins the Oscar for Best Actor. He completely deserves it. He devoted 3 years of his life to this. And I'm so sick and tired of all of those things on the internet saying, lose the accent. Like, what's up with Austin Butler's voice? It's like, yeah, imagine playing this role for 3 years. Like, it would be difficult to get out of it. And like, let's give the guy a break. So I'm an Austin Butler fan, if we can't tell. But anyways, it just seemed like the hardest role and something that would be so difficult to embody when you have Elvis's family also there and a part of the production team. Even if they're executive producers, they're a part of the production team. Anyways, wonderful job. And I think he's such a tortured soul as well. He also lost his mother at 23, just like Elvis did. And he already made an audition tape for Baz Luhrmann, the director, and he didn't like it. He was unsatisfied with it, so he didn't send it in. And then a couple days later, he wakes up in like a full-on cold sweat, thinking that he dreamt that he had lost his mother all over again. And this just shows you how serious he is about his craft. Instead of just sitting there with his emotions or trying to fall back asleep or anything like that, he was like, okay, what can I do with these emotions? So he decided to film himself singing Unchained Melody. And that song is usually a romantic song, but he decided, okay, what if I acted like I was singing this to my mother? And his agent then sent that to Baz Luhrmann, and Baz said, am I watching an audition or am I watching a man having a complete mental breakdown? And I think that's where their chemistry started, where it was just like, all right, this guy is something special. He's bringing something very unique to the role. And then after they started workshopping a little bit, he hadn't officially gotten the part yet. Denzel Washington actually called Baz Luhrmann and was like, hey, I'm not trying to sway you or do anything. I worked with Austin on a play like a few years ago, and this man's work ethic will blow you away. And like, that is really amazing. And Denzel Washington and Baz Luhrmann didn't know each other at all, and just the fact that he felt compelled to do that is so cool to me. And Denzel Washington just seems like the coolest. But anyways, yeah, it just seems like such a hard role to play, and the responsibility of it too. And once Priscilla saw a few of the initial cuts of the film, she just couldn't move, was bawling, crying, and then wrote Baz this beautiful letter saying that every like twitch, every little movement, every was exactly like my husband. And if my husband were here and saw Austin Butler as him, he would say, hot damn, you are me. Which is just so amazing, and really what like a respectful, wonderful thing to be able to be Austin Butler and say that you gave that to the Presley family. Moving on to Baz Luhrmann. I love the guy. He's only directed 6 films. I love that he has boundaries about what he wants to direct and what he doesn't want to direct. I really want to see him direct a Bond film because I would love to see his interpretation with that. But yeah, he was even asked to direct one of the early Harry Potter films, and this was like before, like right when the first book came out, so like no one understood how mega it was gonna get. And he was asked to direct, and he was like, yeah, like wizard kids, like that's not really my thing. which is so funny to think about now because I can't imagine his interpretation on the Wizarding World. But yeah, he's only directed 6 films, and in all of his films, you always know what the ending is going to be. You know, he did Romeo and Juliet with Leonardo DiCaprio and Claire Danes. He did Moulin Rouge. He did The Great Gatsby, and now this. And I really do think if you haven't seen one of those films, you might not love this interpretation of Elvis. Everything is just to the max, like just on high voltage of, okay, eye color is going to be so intense. The jet black hair is going to be so intense. And just the way he films is so unique, and all the colors are so rich and so powerful. And not only that, he mixes in, you know, the iconic 50s, 60s, 70s music of Elvis with a modern twist. And then also has all of the jazz interpretations that Elvis got, or the influences, has all of the jazz influences that Elvis had from Little Richard and all of these amazing Black artists. And I loved seeing that part of the film because I really didn't know that. And it's amazing to see how Elvis's career took off because of that. And then Tom Hanks, I mean, America's Dad is now the villain, and like the most disgusting villain too. He's so good at the manager, Colonel Disgusting. He's so good, and I like Tom Hanks is one of the best character actors as well, like in my opinion. He's just so wonderful. But what's crazy is that, you know, right when COVID first happened, knock on wood, and Tom Hanks was like one of the first big names to be diagnosed. That was right when they started shooting. And Baz Luhrmann actually called Austin Butler and was like, hey, I don't think we can do this. And this was after Austin Butler had been working on his character for like 2 years already, was like in the throes of it, had, you know, voice coaches, had read every book, had seen every recording, every video that Elvis has ever done, then also, you know, spent a ton of time in Graceland and just went through all these national archives of his clothing and what he wrote, and just a tremendous amount of research. And then to get a call of saying, hey, Tom Hanks has COVID, I don't think this film is going to be made. I want there to be a movie about the making of this movie, because it seems like it was just a roller coaster of what's going to happen next. Is this movie really going to happen? And also just people not knowing what was going to happen with the pandemic. Like no one knew how long it was going to go on. And Baz Luhrmann recalled saying, oh, like, you know, maybe this will only be like a 2-week thing. And then he got a doctor's advice on it and was like, like, what are we going to do? But luckily, Tom Hanks came back and everyone else was willing to come back. Back to everyone else, I love that Baz Luhrmann says he has no extras in his films. He only has characters. And when you're watching that very first scene when Elvis walks on the stage and the women in the audience are just, oh my gosh, goo-goo-eyed over his dancing and his voice and everything, you see that every single woman has a different shade of lipstick, a different bow in their hair, a different, like, obviously they all look different because they're supposed to be different humans, but there's a quality where you can just tell they worked on having backstories for every person, which I really appreciate. And it takes a tremendous amount of time and effort. And you can tell that as a director, he spends as much or the same amount of time or more of his time with these other characters in the film, these smaller roles. And that's very unique. Like most directors don't do that. So watch this film. It's so wonderful. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. It's one of those movies that I could just watch again and again and again. I am really excited for the Oscars to see Austin Butler. I really hope that he wins. He deserves it. And yeah, let me know your thoughts.